place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, March 14th, 2025, and this is episode 1016 of Living Free in Tennessee. That's right, 1016 episodes ago, I decided to do my first show. Hi, Debbie in Texas. And it was not the best thing in the world. We'll just put it that way. But 80 people downloaded it, and then the next day, 16 people downloaded episode 2. Those were early days in the podcast, but today's a Homestead happening show, and I'm going to be joined by who? The Tactical Redneck. Is your microphone on?
Should be.
Talk some so they can tell me.
I just did.
Talk like longer than I just did.
Well, I mean, how much do I need to say? Either they heard me or they didn't.
Can you guys hear him? Happy Friday, Pack Rat. If y'all don't mind, let folks know on social that we're live. I'm not sure all my posts work well. I was dealing with a very frustrating issue on the phone before the show started.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with a guy too.
Yeah, so your left control arm's bent?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, before we jump into the updates from the Homestead with the Tactical Redneck, who needs to get on the screen a little bit better, please. He likes his space bubble to be at least an arm away, and the problem is he's 6'4", so his arm is like 900 yards long. And I understand you don't want to sit too close to anybody, but I promise I won't bite you.
Well, this is like elbow length.
This is elbow length, yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that's the Self-Reliance Festival. That's right. We're starting to roll out and announce the speakers over at the selfreliancefestival.com. First up is Joel Riles, who's going to talk about the most important thing, defending your family. So check that out, selfreliancefestival.com. Individual tickets are $95 for the first 100 tickets that sell, and then they start going up, kind of like a plane ticket. There are also family passes, again, for this event. Those are $250 for 2 adults and as many children under 18 that are related to you that you have. And no, I am not checking papers on the way in the door, but, be nice to us, please. Check it out, selfreliancefestival.com. That's October 4th and 5th at Birdsong Marina in Camden, Tennessee. I also want to thank 2 sponsors today. The first one is agoristaxadvice.com, agoristaxadvice.com. Matthew Sursley is the founder of Agorist Tax Advice, and he got motivated by one of his superpowers. Maybe I'm not allowed to say it's a superpower. Anyway, he just has a background in both the law and in legal finance, and so he's able to analyze your finances and go over what different structures you may want to use so that you can optimize your tax write-offs so that you keep more of your money in your pocket. Check out more at agoristaxadvice.com/LFTN to sign up for his email newsletter, which is pretty awesome. I like it. It's short, to the point, not up in my face every day like some other people I know. And it's always some information about tax deductions that I will find interesting, or legal filings that I may or may not know need to happen. Second sponsor of today's show is John Pugliano of the Wealthsteading podcast. Get it? Homesteading, wealthsteading. John Pugliano is one of us. He's a homesteader, ham radio guy. In fact, he's doing a ham radio presentation at the spring workshop here on the Holler Homestead. And he has a really cool podcast, short episodes, about 15 minutes, about how he's making investment decisions, the state of the market, and different things like that. Some of his early episodes go over his philosophy of investing, which is definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. Get information on that at investablewealth.com. Click on podcasts, and that'll take you to his podcast episodes. With that, it's time to talk about the first item on today's show, which is not the four-wheeler, but let's talk about it anyway. Are you mad because the control arms are bent?
I'm not mad. It's a little irritating.
What's that mean? I don't know what that means. This whole week has been about tell Nicole what things mean that mechanics say.
Well, I knew that this thing was a little banged up, and I got everything put back together. I noticed when I did put the front tires on, one of them looked like it was canted in a little bit, and I was like, that just looks weird. It doesn't look right, but I was just like, okay, whatever. Took it for a test drive, and I could hear it popping, and I was like, well, that might just be, ball joints adjusting or whatever. I'm going to have to retorque everything anyway. Didn't think too much of it, and then got everything retorqued, took it up the hill today playing around, and it's like certain things I do, I could hear the little popping, and I was like, that's not right. So I came back and started looking, and I finally grabbed a straight edge and figured out, like, because these things are bent at all kinds of angles to start with, but I stuck a straight edge on the left one, and it was like, yeah, that should not sit flat up against this bar at all, because there's a weld that it should hit and stick out like a quarter of an inch, and it's not. It's like a quarter of an inch away from the weld. So this thing is like bent way back. So
this is how this looks to me. There's a redneck walking around, hanging out under tires in the front of his four-wheeler, and then hanging out under tires in the front of his Jeep, and then hanging out under tires of the four-wheeler. So I assume you were comparing something to something.
Yeah, I mean, looking at different stuff and trying to figure out, it's like, okay, let me go get my 2-foot level and see if I can stick that in somewhere. And I finally managed to find that one spot. So, one of the reasons you go to local places is you tend to find out about other local people. So I have the name and phone number for a guy.
You know a guy?
I don't know a guy. I'm about to know
You know a guy who knows a guy? So
yeah.
What's the remedy for this?
I need to buy 2 left arms for that thing.
And do you have to be welded on?
No.
Okay. How much is that going to run you?
100, 150.
Are you happy about that?
Well, I'm not happy about it, but I'm not pissed about it either.
Yeah. So he took this entire four-wheeler apart down to its frame, as near as I can tell, and then rebuilt it.
I just took the drivetrain completely apart.
He just took the drivetrain completely apart. And he was all excited to get it back together today so he could finally use it. And now you have to wait another 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, it's still drivable. It's just...
He's not letting me drive it.
Preferably not driving it
yeah.
Unless it's necessary. What I don't want to do is put an enormous amount of strain on the axle and cause the axle to go out prematurely.
It kind of seems like you shouldn't drive it.
Yeah.
There are 2 other four-wheelers in the holler at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So asymmetry in measurements between left and right sides of the suspension is often a clue from Pack Rat.
Yeah, and that's the other difficult part about it, is trying to figure out how you can stick a tape measure or a steel ruler in there and actually contact everything in the right places and not have to have a tape measure curled around something.
Remember 6 months ago when I went out to the Eversoles overnight and slept in the back of the truck?
No.
The back seat of the truck? Yeah, I totally did it. I had a tent with me, but I was seeing if I could just crash in the truck. So when I go places, I could just crash in the truck. And I was able to sleep, but I had to contort in weird ways, with my feet in the front seat and stuff, because it's not quite long enough.
Yeah.
And then I started talking about getting a topper for it so that when I go to events like that, I can just throw a mattress in the back.
Yeah.
Guess what happened today?
I got part of a story on somebody said they have one.
So I got a call. This morning has been off the hook, completely off plan for almost everything, except for I did get my swim in.
Yeah.
I got a call from Docs, from Matt at Docs. Okay. And he said, hey, does Chris want a topper for his Tundra? And I was thinking Tahoe. And I was like, why would you put a Tahoe? And it's not his, it's mine, and it's total. And it's because he has the Tahoe tires right now.
Yeah.
Because he's taking them off the rim so I can sell the tires. And I was like, no, it's a Tahoe, and that's mine, but it's total, so I don't need a topper for it. He's like, no, the Tundra. I was like, oh, truck topper actually makes sense on the Tundra, and he saw you driving the Tundra yesterday.
Yeah.
So he goes, if he picks it up today, it's $50. And I was like, sweet, I'll pick it up, because I'm pretty sure it would have to be a pretty major emergency point to get Tactical to drive. Also, I said your real name, didn't I? Oops. Are you sad about that?
Oh.
Okay. And he's like, well, if you pick it up, it's $25. I just want to get rid of it today. And I was like, I'll be in. He's like, it's got the clamps and everything. So I'm getting a topper for the Tundra.
That's nice.
So that was one car thing that worked out in my favor today, because the Subaru just got back from the mechanic. And y'all know last week I had been given an estimate by a company that I'm not naming on the internet right now because I'm not mean, for $5,100 of drivetrain work.
I'm tempted to name them because I've had problems with
Yeah,
them
but we're not
before.
going to, because I don't want to deal with that. So, I mean, the guy at least was willing to show us what he meant and tell us it's okay for us to do the work. So,
yeah.
I knew there was something up when the battery was included, although he was like, you don't need a battery. I don't know why that's on there. And then the air filter, which had just been replaced 2 weeks before. So I was like, you know, you want to throw the, you know, like just throw in a detailing of the car while you're at it. That's twice as much as if I did it, or, you know, anyway. So I went straight from there with their bid to Docs. And I was like, hey, this is what I just got from this other place. And I was trying to get an alignment, by the way. And I didn't get the alignment because I was like, why bother if it has all these other problems? And he's like, well, if we did all this work, it'd be $4,100. So already $1,000 less. He's like, but really, I would be surprised if all that's wrong, because I looked at that car pretty carefully and I didn't see all that. So he made an appointment for me for this week, took the car. He had did a test drive on the freeway. And there was a little bit, the reason I was even in there is it's been real rough on the freeway after I drove it about 150 miles, because it had brand new tires on it when we looked at it. And he said, you know, two things. One, they put brake pads on, but not rotors. And so when you brake, it's real rough. And he's like, there's nothing mechanically wrong with that, but that really bothers some people. Some people. Yeah. And then the CV axle is a little loose, although you don't necessarily need to replace it, but it will make it drive rougher. And again, you can change it if it bothers you. And my thought was, you know, I want the car to last for 100,000 miles if possible. So something like that shake seems like, to me, it would put wear and tear on the car.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it. So I got out for under way less than even half. And while we were at it, we replaced the studs in the tires that were not taking lug nuts very easily. So got the car back, and it's like a totally different drive now on the freeway. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's been all of the mechanical issues from the hauler. I was ridiculed by a friend of mine this morning about how I should just become Amish and drive a horse and buggy, because surely fewer things will go wrong. Hello, Kiri and Homestead Medical. Welcome to the live stream. Okay, so this week, from a foraging standpoint, it's time to harvest nettle for winter tea. It's not quite flowering yet, which is a really good time to get it. And when you harvest it, you either put rubber gloves on so you don't get stuck by it, or if you are careful about not going down the stem, but kind of going up carefully, you usually don't get stung. So you can do it barehanded, or in a pinch, if you brought a plastic shopping bag with you to harvest the nettle and forgot your gloves, which has totally never happened to me ever in 100 million years, you can put your hand around the plastic bag and harvest it that way. With stinging nettle, it actually makes a delicious cream of stinging nettle soup, by the way. And once it's cooked, the muriatic acid is no longer active. It's been broken down into its base components, so you won't get stung anymore. But it's the little hairs on the stems and under the leaves that get you. When you dry it, it's the same thing. You can dry the stinging nettle for tea, and then it's no longer got that sting anymore. I do know the first time I actually ate stinging nettle, you know, there was this hesitation with the spoon in my mouth with the soup recipe I'd made. It was like, if I sting my tongue, it's going to suck. But I guess it'll only suck for about an hour. Stinging nettle is kind of interesting because when you get stung, it hurts and your skin will inflame. But if you have pain on your skin already, it hurts for a second and then it sort of becomes numb, which is, it has a numbing impact on your skin. So I'm guessing that's sometimes used to help burn victims, would be my guess.
I know it's used for arthritis.
Yeah.
They'll intentionally sting themselves and it does something and relieves the arthritis.
I thought that
pain.
was bees.
I've heard an herbalist talk about it. I don't remember the details because that's not an issue I'm concerned with at this time.
It's a good source of vitamin D. It's not like super strong D compared to like a pill, but it is a good source of vitamin D. And for women at my age in life, it's something that you can combine with red clover for reasons. So anyway, that's it, and it tastes good. I mean, like I mix it with peppermint because I mix almost everything with peppermint, but that's something that I like to have in winter teas, sometimes in summer teas. We should make tea today.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nighthawk needs tea.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of the community, Nighthawk got the flu last Friday, and we totally dodged this bullet because he was out of town. And he came back Friday, and usually when he comes back, he comes down and visits for a bit and then goes home. But I think he was just so tired from the week, and he was already starting to get sick that he did not come down. And then Saturday, about 11 in the morning, he's like, I'm sick, and he sounded like death warmed over. And that initiated the bone broth / other things, except for we kind of fumbled that ball a little bit. Yeah. So we do this like contactless pass off because everybody lives in their own house. So if like you're sick, you can stay in your house. And then unless you actually need assistance, usually somebody doesn't go into your house and get exposed. And I had heard how bad the flu was this year from Spirko. And I was like, I really like, if I get it, okay, but I'll try not to. So he was starting to feel better. And then he went to work for a day, came home, fever spiked over 104. And then there was the following conversation. Which one of us gets to get sick first? And Tactical decided he'd get sick first. Because if you get sick, I'm going to get sick.
Yeah, but I'm also less likely to get sick.
So he drove him to the ER. And luckily, well, assuming tests mean anything, he was negative for the flu by then. But he's been diagnosed with an upper respiratory infection, given nothing for it, basically. They gave him anti-nausea medicine.
Makes no sense to me.
He gets nauseous when he has a fever. Okay. And they told him to see his general practitioner in 7 days if it's not gone. This is the same ER that misdiagnosed you with pneumonia, though.
Yeah.
But they gave you because you had bronchitis, they said. So I don't know what to think, but he sounds terrible today. So I suggested that he go to the urgent care and maybe get that looked at again. But, or we could give him tea with like mullein and elderberry and ginger and all of the things. Yeah, Tactical really wants to add. Were you picking oregano for him today?
I have not, but we can.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of what happens in the holler. There was lots of precautions taken, and the usual frustration with electric thermometers not working right because it seems like every time you need one, the battery's dead. And storing a lot of them doesn't work because the batteries go dead while they sit there.
Yeah.
Making me want to have a backup analog thermometer, which I used to have, but it broke. So, yeah, we're going to get one of those.
Yeah.
I don't know. If Chuck Peoples is listening, I feel like you could make a sale right now.
If Chuck's listening, I'm still waiting on an animal first aid kit.
Okay. Morels are, I haven't seen any morels yet, but the time is now, between now and about the end of the month, for morels to start popping. So we've made a visit to one morel spot. Did you make your visit to the other morel spot? No. So it's time to look at all the morel spots and see if they pop out. Hopefully we'll find some this year. I haven't been wandering in the woods as much as I'd like to for that, so we'll see. But last year we had a pretty good morel year.
Yeah.
But, you know, everybody had a good morel year last year.
Well, I mean, we also stumbled across multiple patches, too.
Yeah.
So.
And often they'll come back in the same place.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so keep your eyes out for those. If you're in Tennessee, if you're further north, you probably got a little while to wait. And if you're further south, they're probably already coming. So there is that. Also, we've got the early spring greens. And this is usually a little bit earlier that all of this happens. But with our plunges, our multiple plunges to zero, things are like they're catching up, but they're also behind. Like I'm surprised there aren't more leaves on the trees. So We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So a really good early spring salad is to take, so I use normal lettuce and then I add early spring greens on top of it. Like you can make it with all early spring greens, but with our watercress patch not up, I don't have the watercress as a base, which is what I would usually use as a base. So baby plantain. So plantain when it's little works really well on a salad. When it gets bigger, it gets stringy. Dead nettle leaves, and you can go look at what that looks like. Baby bodock, like little ones again, and wild garlic all go really well on a salad. It's a little early for the mustard flower. That'll start coming up soon, but I find that mustard flower is not usually ready till about Easter, no matter where Easter is, which is an interesting thing because Easter, travels all over the place. The daylilies are starting to come up, but obviously they're not going to be blooming till June. So you can add that to your salad, and it just adds a nutrient variety plus interesting flavors to your salad. Second garden bed's up. How you feel about that?
Oh, I haven't really had time to think much of it.
Yeah. So we got there are now 3 of the 4 beds we're definitely going to have by the end of spring ready to go. I want to put 2 more beds in.
Yeah.
But 3 of them are up and planted, and the 4th one is half full. So I'm hoping that the weather will agree with us today and let us fill it up more. Do you think you have time, or is there too much crazy?
I don't know. We'll see how long it takes me to deal with the rest of the sheep stuff today.
What are you doing with the sheep today?
Prepping for moving.
When are they going to move?
The Ram and Stormy are moving tonight, and everybody else is probably moving after the storm goes through.
Yeah, speaking of Stormy, we've been a little worried that she might prolapse. So we borrowed a prolapse harness from Renegade Homesteaders and put one on her in the idea that it would prevent. So I took it off yesterday because it had some buildup of poop that got up under there. And I thought, since she hasn't prolapsed, we'll give her some breaks from it and put it back on.
Yeah.
So, but my thought there is if the prolapse never happens, then it's easier to have the birth happen. And then I'm pretty sure that particular ewe is never getting pregnant again if we can help it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's just little. Homestead Medical says, I have the prototype. When I finalize it, I'll send you one to see what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still waiting.
So the food forest, like all the trees are trimmed, but the swales themselves got nailed pretty hard this winter and also through the drought last year. So I've been going through when we're filling beds, he's getting we have to move the soil from up the hill. So he's been moving it down, and then I spread it out and mix stuff with it in the beds. And while he's filling the buckets, I've been working on the swales and getting them mulched in with hay after I knock out what I don't want there. We had some rose bushes gone crazy. So I trimmed.
That's what rose bushes do.
Not all of them do that, but I trimmed them way back, and we'll see if they turn into something decent this year. And if they don't, then they're coming out, and I'll put something else in there. All of the blueberries died this winter, and well, they were dying going into the winter, so they're dead now. And so I have 3 more blueberry bushes coming from Nick Ferguson from rareplantstore.com.
There's still a couple of them underneath that shed.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I have blueberry bushes under a shed that are thriving along with the wineberries.
Yeah.
But we haven't decided where the pokey patch goes. I just need a square pokey patch with arbor in it, and I can put all the pokey things I like in the pokey patch. And then it's in one place, so you don't have to touch the pokey patch.
You said that about the garden over here.
Yeah? Have you had to touch it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Recently?
Fairly recently, and I'm also stepping over...
The mountain of thorn?
No, the 15 branches laying out in the middle of the yard that want to snag my pants.
I don't understand how those got there. I wonder if they blew there.
They're there.
But it'd be nice to have raspberries. Raspberries are pokey.
Don't care.
we have a disconnect in some of the choices, but the swales are coming together. Once they're mulched, I'm using this old barn hay we got to mulch them, which will end up planting some grass there too, which is fine for that area. But I'm going to come back and I have like just fistfuls of old seeds that I'll throw in there, and whatever comes up comes up. And I've also got strawberries coming next week for them. So the goal there, guys, is to get a different ground cover than what's there, because we're getting the typical Tennessee viney ground cover. Even though I have tried to establish something else to choke it out, it's just really, really persistent here. Yeah. And I think as the soil gets better on those, that will actually reduce. I think the soil is still pretty bad in that area.
Yeah, it's better than it was.
It's better than it was, but the soil isn't great. With me making biochar now, I'm hoping that will help. I can sprinkle that places with rabbit poop, and hopefully it'll just integrate in. I'm not going to be like digging it in.
Yeah.
I could use dung beetles. They could do that.
I'm a fan of just throw it out there and let nature take care of it.
Yeah. So that's happening. We have big things happening with the sheep flock. So it is now time to avoid a future unplanned pregnancy situation, which means removing some of the baby rams from their moms. And it's time to turn my house into a bachelor pad. So basically, I think in the next week we'll be moving at least 2 rams over here, 2 young ones, Cloudies and Khakis. It's time to move them. If we can leave the other ones over there a little bit longer, that and do it in cycles. We had sort of a 2-week break between each set of births.
I think 2 bottle babies can come back over here too.
Oh yeah, they could. You're right. Probably. Even though they're pretty young. I'll have to look at when they were born. I have a spreadsheet.
It was around New Year.
No, they were born in January, mid-January, I think. So they're just coming on 8 weeks right now.
Yeah, they're probably 2 months old.
Yeah.
And they're already getting supplemental milk. So.
Yeah, that's true too. But you might have to go back to 2 times a day. Yeah, we'll see. Well, actually, I mean, we could wean them. If they're 8 weeks old, we can wean them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then that gets us 4 bachelors over here. With the 5th bachelor does that mean we move Stormy back over there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I don't think Stormy I don't really want her giving birth around rams. But I also don't want her giving birth around dogs. And we have the other one over there who's on the same timeline as she is.
She'll probably be back over there before she gives birth.
But are we going to put her separate?
I mean, when she's close, I plan on separating the dogs.
Okay. Yeah. So we need to keep an eye on that other one too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's been hoof trimming has started. So we're doing a cycle of hoof trimming. I wish somebody had showed me how to trim hooves in person. Like I've only seen online. And so I'm like, I feel like it takes me 400 years to do hooves.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if I'm going too far or not far enough, but I don't want to hurt their feet. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'll let you handle it. I just hold them.
I wonder if I need like a little grinder, a little handheld grinder, Dremel tool.
Thought about that.
Yeah. I was like, they just have to not, how they kick when they're down like that? Yeah. Sheep don't like having their feet trimmed in my flock. So when we go over next door to do the sheep, then we need to get spray paint for their butts.
Yeah.
And then I'm less worried about the baby feet than the adult feet. So that's happening. It's like there's always something going on, guys, that you got to do. It's just the way it works. So let's see. It's time to breed rabbits this week. And we're going to move the male out of the hanging cage and get 2 females in there because I have 1 cage open. We have 4 females right now. 4 females? 3 females? Yeah, we have 3 females. We have 4 rabbits. 3 females and 1 male. So he's moving to a bachelor pad tractor is what's happening.
Yeah.
But first, I want to expose all the females to him. So my thought is we move the middle one over for a day, move her back, take one of the white ones, put it in with him for a day, move her to the side cage, and then take the the other white female, put her in with him, and then move him out to where the white female was.
Okay.
And then that way there's no chance of somebody feeling territorial about territory.
Yeah.
Because what happens, I've heard, never seen it happen, is if you put the male in with the female instead of the female in with the male, they can get territorial and bite their nuts off, which sounds like then you don't have a buck who can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good. So, how's the duck egg situation going?
Improving again.
Yeah, so we tried a new feed that's peanut protein based, and egg count went down.
Well, it went down from the other feed that we had, but it went up from the original stuff.
Right. So it went down by about half though.
Yeah.
And we had to determine if it was a yard egg problem or a nutrition problem. And I looked, so the one thing about the peanut-based feed is the protein level of that is about 2 or 3% lower than the protein content of the feed we were giving them in the interim to see if the other feed was bad for them. So I started looking at ways to increase their protein, and Tactical came home with black soldier fly larvae from Big R and supplemented their feed with that last night. We did coincidentally get about double eggs this morning. And I'm not sure it would happen that fast. That seems fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they're kind of teetering on the edge. They've mostly been putting out about 5.
They were
We
up
had
to 12 a day.
Yeah, and then there was a day where they laid 1, and then they got the supplemental last night and back up to 7. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, and I've also got, so the black oil sunflower seed system is built, and we have a bit of a hitch in me doing it regularly with it being a pain in the butt to turn the water on to soak them. So I decided today to soak them in the morning instead of overnight, and then I'll just drain them tonight and then start maintaining them every morning, because apparently I like, there's a brain fart thing that happens with me having to run inside to turn the water on outside every time. So I had the water on anyway this morning, and I was like, well, I'll get those soaking as well and set an alarm on my phone so I remember to drain them. And then it's a matter of remembering to water them every morning, which I can then like tag with my morning coffee as a thing. So, and sometimes getting a new routine up and running on the homestead, it's stupid because it's like all you need is a checklist, and then you don't look at your checklist, and then it doesn't get done anyway. Or like last night to see the blood moon, I set alarms and I ran outside after being woken up, and I saw like it was starting to go, but it wasn't all the way. And then I was like, and I'm really tired. So I said, screw it, and didn't get back up at 2 a.m. Did you? No. So I saw half of a blood moon last night. I used to stay up with friends watching lunar eclipses, but it was sort of one of those like, no, I was sleeping really good and I want to sleep really good again. And that does not include getting up at 2 a.m. to see a blood moon.
Yeah.
What?
I kind of feel the same way about that as the time I was in Times Square. I was in Times Square because they told me to get on the wrong subway. And then when I realized it, I had to get off, walk up across the street and back down, and happened to look over and notice, oh, this is Times Square. Click, took a picture, and went down to the subway.
Yeah, so I'm more fascinated by what happens in the stars than he is. I actually like watching the eclipses, the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse. And I like seeing what happens with stars. Like we've had that alignment of planets lately, which is really interesting, where you just see them all in a line, which you may or may not have been aware of. No. But it's, that stuff I find really interesting. So I don't know. But it was not interesting enough to get up at 2 a.m. last night and go outside. No. I was like, my bed's really warm right now. And it's not warm out there. I didn't have a fire last night because it would have hurled me into way overheating in the house. So this is the time of year where it's like, it's not quite cold enough for a fire, but it's a little colder than I'd like it to be, but it's not quite cold enough for a fire. And then sometimes you're like, I know, I'll bake a roast and that will heat up my house with the oven. And it's sort of a little game I play.
Yeah.
Now I have a mini split, so I can turn that on. And I did turn that on 2 days ago to heat up a little bit.
Yeah.
Take the edge off. But I don't really like spending the electricity on that because it does eat up a lot of electricity to heat with electricity. Like, it's very interesting that our whole country has gone this direction where heat pumps that are run by electricity are the way we heat our homes, because it seems very inefficient to me. It uses a lot of power. And, meanwhile, I just I get a wood stove fire thing going and I just put some logs on. It's no big deal. So that's just me.
Yeah.
Passive solar is kind of a way to heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to keep your panels clean. I need to clean the roof on that thing in my spare time.
Right.
Do you know what my next big project is? Are you afraid to find out?
Painting the floor, raised bed gardens, putting more raised beds together, moving sheep.
My next big project is sealing the floor in the prepper pantry.
It's not happening today.
No, but hopefully by the end of the weekend I'll have it done, which is possible.
We'll see.
And then the raised bed is more your project than my project. But I would like to get that one up. I got beets seeded yesterday in that new raised bed so I can grow my own beets instead of having to find somebody who grew their own beets and then I buy them from them.
Okay.
I think that soil is going to be perfect for it. We'll see how that goes. The trick's going to be keeping those watered. So need to make another watering system for that bed. And what I've noticed about the watering system I built for the first bed is that the water pressure when it's low just doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that.
It's the downside of having a pump at the bottom of the hill.
Oh. Well, that's not going to be fixed before the spring workshop, is it?
No.
Okay. I have a tank to go at the top of the hill. I have all the pipes in place, but the last little bit's not run. But we need to get new pipe for that because that got left out in the sun, and then that breaks down the plastics, which is carcinogenic.
There's more pipe in there.
And then it needs to connect, and then we're ready to go. And then we're still pumping from the bottom of the hill, but the water pressure will be maintained from the top of the hill, right?
Yeah.
Except for the pressure bladder that was down there, up here is down there now.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to buy a pressure bladder.
Probably.
Okay. Yay, water systems. One of the things about being a homesteader and running your own water is you have to run your own water. And if you don't know anything about water systems, it's stinking hard to learn about water systems because apparently most of the country doesn't have to mess with water. So information is hard to find. And then you find listicles online that are made to sell stuff that have nothing to do with educating you about how your water system works. And then there's different ways that different water systems work. And really the best way for me to learn about water systems has been to go to B&G Plumbing in Smithville, Tennessee and ask.
The advantage to being on your own water system is the only way I ever hear about the fact that the county water is down is when my neighbor says that they saw a Facebook post about the fact that the county water is down.
Yep. Packrat says, normal beets just want to grow. Brother-in-law quote, you can grow beets on a car hood. I have killed so many beets, Packrat. And the problem is when you have high clay content soil, the beets don't love to grow. They just don't love to grow.
Yeah.
And so this soil has a lot more biochar in it and other things, and it's a lot looser. Like the times I've had beets do well has been when it's been in the best part of my garden, but then I don't want them there every year. Yeah. So, and I feel like something's still out of balance here, which is why every other day, what do I ask you to do? Can you make compost tea today?
Oh.
It's been a constant. Every day I'm like, do you have time to make compost tea? Do you have time to make compost tea? And he's like, only if you'll use it. And I'm like, oh, I'll use it. So do you have time to make compost tea?
Maybe.
Maybe. We've been making tea out of the one compost pile we have that's really ready because there's just one pile. I plan to take material from that pile for this last bed that we're getting up.
I've been pulling compost out of all 4 of them.
Okay. But anyway, I'm planning to take a good amount out. And the last of the rabbit poop.
Okay.
So the good thing about rabbit poop is it's very easy to resupply rabbit poop if you have rabbits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to remember to put the tray back. Did not do it. Still haven't done it. Have you done it?
No.
No. I have one rabbit that's just been pooping on the ground because I forgot to put her tray back down. But rabbit poop's been a really good garden addition. And then the compost tea, what I'm doing is when he makes it, I'm foliar spraying all of the plants that exist and drenching the ground with it as we flip over from winter into warmer temperatures because the soil bacteria is waking up, but I want to introduce more in. How's your worm bin going? What's that mean?
They're still alive.
Have you not been feeding them enough?
Not really. I throw some stuff in there every now and then just to keep them going, but I have not been like throwing stuff in there on the regular.
How long would it take to get it thriving again if you start throwing stuff there in the regular?
As long as it takes them to reproduce.
Like a week or two?
It's probably more. I forget what it is. I think it's more like 3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks? If I remind you to feed them, will you feed them?
No, because most of the time it's a lack of stuff to throw in there.
Well, my thing was I would hand you the things to throw in there.
I mean, if you do that, then that's.
I mean, I make stuff you could throw in there all the time. Not that stuff, but vegetable ends and things.
Yeah, that would be very different.
Yeah. I mean, I'm making sauerkraut for the spring workshop this weekend. And I'm about to have a bunch of cabbage pieces.
Yeah.
Do they want fruit too?
They would eat fruit. I just don't throw any like onion, garlic.
Yeah.
Any of that in there.
Okay. I need to clean out the freezer too, and I'm going to end up with a bunch of beet greens.
Okay.
How much volume do you want? And on what schedule? Like a cup of stuff? 2 cups of stuff?
Sure.
How often? Every day? Every week?
Like every 2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days? Okay. I can do that. I can make like a worm pile. Do they want anything non-vegetable? Or is that too, besides coffee grounds?
I mean, I throw coffee grounds in there. I'll throw rice or pasta or something in there every now and then.
Okay.
I try to find some dry stuff to throw in.
What's that mean? Like leaves?
Anything that's dry that will absorb moisture.
Okay, like sawdust. Eat.
Well, not necessarily. I haven't thrown sawdust in there, but I try to find some dry because mine will end up like sopping wet. So I try to find some stuff to throw in there that will absorb some of the moisture and dry the beds out a little bit.
Okay. Do you collect the liquid off the bed?
Yeah.
Okay, you have like a drain at the bottom?
It's got a couple of holes in it.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'll help you with that because I want I want worm castings, and B, I want worm tea too. Soon.
Okay.
What's that message? He's checking his text messages on a live stream.
Somebody that hasn't figured out that this person has not had this phone number for like a decade.
Okay.
I was hoping that was, yeah, I've got a set of those parts.
The whatever arm?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay. Which yard herbs made it and which yard herbs did not? And by yard herbs, I mean like we have put herbs all over the yard. When we put in the trees, like we interplanted trees throughout the property as part of that tree class we did in October. And next to every tree was yard herbs, basically. Almost every tree. So I noticed there's some thyme on the back 40 where you run the sheep, which means that thyme will get eaten by the sheep.
I mean, so far what I've seen about, and I haven't like gone looking in all the places, but I have There's some chocolate mint that's still alive. It was just big enough that I managed to get a really short cutting off of it. There's some rosemary that's still alive. Thyme looks really good. Some of the oregano is starting to come back.
I've got oregano still alive on my swales too. Like it's been hardy here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I've seen.
Is there any sage in the yard at this point?
I've got a couple of sage plants that are still alive. I've not looked at all of them.
The sage plant that we planted in the first raised bed to inaugurate it with a sage plant is still alive.
That's good.
Yeah, that one lived. My big sage plant is not looking too good in the aquaponics system.
I'm glad I got like 500 cuttings off of that.
I think it'll be okay. And I added probably a cubic yard of soil to each one with the help of Lynn next door.
Yeah.
Like we made a blend of what was coming out of the pots and biochar and rabbit poop and got it all up in there and raised the level because the soil had dropped in the aquaponics system and I hadn't done anything about that by adding material. So,
No.
And that will happen. Like you have to add wood chips or something for that system to work, or you just end up with it's like dropping, or mulch would have been good. But I had let it go last year because I thought we were going to take it out last year because we were building this other aquaponics system up on the hillside that we didn't build. And so this year I have admitted we're not building that anytime soon. And I have gotten this one back up and now I just want to make it pretty.
Okay.
So I think I want to take down the big square 2x4 things too, because
Okay.
we're not using them.
Okay.
And then we'll put some other sort of trellising up.
Okay.
Does that sound fun?
No.
Why not?
Figure it out later.
Figure it out later. He's like, because you want to do everything all at once all the time. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, I do. I want to do everything all the time, all at once. It's the disease of the homesteader. You do too.
Yeah, but right now I've got a list of 3, maybe 4 things that I'm going to actually try to accomplish today, and I'm not putting any thought into much of anything else.
You know what I'm going to accomplish today?
I have no idea.
A $25 truck topper. And then I'm going to go get the lettuce we need for the weekend since I'm in town. And I'm going to open a bank account at a different bank because the bank I've been at since I was 16 merged with another bank. And 2 weeks ago, they started merging their online systems, or I think they were actually probably just moving us to the other system. I think that's what was probably happening. And I have not had access to my bank account since they started doing that, which means I can't, like, I write a check or use a debit card, but I can't make a deposit unless I go into the branch, which is in Oregon, which is a problem, or I could mail it. But all of my automatic payments apparently were turned off too. So anything I had automated as far as paying is done. And today when I called in, they couldn't get to my account because I'd been routed to some other call center where my password could not be used. And I couldn't verify transactions because I don't have access to it, which is why I was calling. So I decided that they told me it's a known issue with very few accounts. And that must mean I'm not important to them if it's not fixed by the end of today. So it's time to set up another bank account that does work. So I'm going to go do that today too, which means I won't get home until Chinese food time for dinner.
Okay.
But I probably won't make Chinese food for dinner because, you know, we have leftover. I made a lamb dish with ground lamb. I was sort of going to go for a sort of a shepherd's pie sort of thing, but I didn't have any cauliflower rice. So it was just sort of a shepherd's pie soup. And then I didn't have any carrots either. So I like sauteed up the ground lamb with onions and spices. And I happened to have a little bit of chicken broth left. So I added that to make it, you know, less dry. And then I did have some frozen peas, so I put those in. And I had kefir that I've been eating it and feeding the dogs, but it's almost like sour cream, but it's not. So I added that too to cream it up a little bit and served it soup style last night. And I thought it was pretty good. Tactical, what'd you think of it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It was legit.
It was legit. And I have enough of that for dinner tonight with a salad, so I was going to get that ready to go. And I think depending on where Dawn's daughter is, because Dawn's daughter is pregnant and towards the end of the pregnancy, which means baby could come at any time. We may end up going live this afternoon for a homegrown cooking episode. If we do that, I'll be doing Scotch eggs and mixing the meat for the Scotch eggs, just because I have 25 more of those to make this weekend as well. So it's a lot of like kitchen time around here, getting ready for the spring workshop, but I'm pretty stoked to have that almost behind me. Other than that, the trees need to be sprayed, by which I mean I need to make garlic pepper tea, which is cayenne pepper or jalapeno pepper and garlic, blend it up in your blender. You put it in the fridge overnight, you strain it out, and then you use it as a foliar sprayed. To that, I want to add labs because the lactobacillus can serve as a protection against diseases that can come for your trees. And last year they got hit so hard with the fire blight that I want to give them a leg up this year. And then I'll probably add some sort of like fish fertilizer or compost tea, or I think I have some Garrett juice around. So something like that.
Yeah,
And I want, because they're just starting to bud out now. So it's like the perfect time. But the purpose of the garlic and the pepper is to deter any pests from, because what'll happen when they're budding out is, I can't remember which pest it is. It like bores in there and lays an egg, and then the fruit grows around it, and then the worm crawls out basically.
Yeah.
So I'm discouraging that kind of pest pressure. My only other issue with the trees is that the fire ants have been all over them, like all over them bad. So I need to go on a fire ant annihilation set of weeks. There's a big old ant hill right out there that's still alive that's going to get drenched with orange oil this weekend. But I'm going to let the 2.5 inches of rain that are going to fall in the next 24 hours come first. And then what happens is the ants are like, hey, we're here. And that's when you can go get them. Yeah. It's a really good time. So we are expecting some like crazy weather here, but I'm not worried about it. Are you?
No, I just like what's going through my brain right now with that is getting the sheep over here moved before having everything ready to move the other sheep after. And then depending on what actually happens with that, there might be a round of checking fence lines before they get moved.
Yeah, and then a round of checking fence lines after the weather. I just heard the wind blow my swim spa cover over. So I have the swim spa open right now because my hair is wet, because I wanted to get a swim in, but you shouldn't be swimming in lightning, and we were expecting lightning this afternoon, so I swam before the show this morning. And while I was at it, I needed to add like chlorine to it, right? So it's open because you leave it open for an hour after you do that to off gas.
No.
And that means that my cover was just leaning up against it. So I heard a big boom, and I'm pretty sure that was the cover. But right after the show, I can put the cover on. I'm going to take a water sample down to the store while I'm in Cookeville anyway, getting the truck topper and all of the other errands that I didn't get to do yesterday. And yeah, that'll be fun. Packrat says, not looking forward to any spicy weather this weekend. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it either, because like weekends are when I try to do more of the long projects. Like I need to seal the prepper pantry floor, so I won't be like juggling coffee roasting and prepper pantry floor, although I might roast tomorrow morning. And it's the funny thing about the prepper pantry floor is that'll take me 15 minutes to do half. And then I need to let it dry enough that I can move the big freezers over to that half. And then it'll take me 15 minutes to do the other half.
So in other words, at least 3 to 5 hours.
Moving the freezers is going to take 3 to 5 hours?
No, I'm saying to paint that floor. You say it's going to take 15 minutes, so plan on 3 to 5
Yeah, maybe.
hours.
I mean, the painting of it, like once it's ready to paint, it doesn't take that long to roller on the stuff. But there is prep. Like there's stuff stored in there that couldn't freeze, so that's got to be pulled out. That's the part that's time consuming.
Well, that and whether or not you need to actually like clean the floor again.
Oh, we need to vacuum it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'll sweep it and vacuum it. I may run the mop over it. We'll see. And then it has to dry. So he's not wrong. Like it. But once we get to the ceiling part, that's done. And when the freezers are across the hall, basically from that back wall, I can paint the back wall white, and I have the white paint in the truck.
Yeah.
So, and then that'll like expose any like little screw holes we may have missed in the cinder block when I paint. I'll be like, oh, there's one we missed. So go back with some caulk. But the idea there, guys, is to get it so that all the freezers can go where they're supposed to be 100% of the time. Get the fourth freezer from outside inside. And then that frees up some space outside, which is nice, but also gets us so that Ryan is going to be back next week to do the utility wall. Okay. So that's, and then once that's done and the paneling's done, it's done for now until I can collect another pile of stuff I sold. So I have a bunch of cash to pay on materials to make custom shelves. It also gives me time to think about like what custom shelves would look like. Because I don't feel like I could just be like, make this and be ready with that. Yeah. So like, should the gun safe go back in there?
Probably.
Do I even need a gun safe that big?
No.
Right. There's that. I could sell the gun safe and get like a different, smaller situation.
Yeah.
So that's what Tactical and I are going to talk about when we're not working on the homestead. What else you got from the homestead? Do you know how much the garden has cost me this year?
No idea.
$60 in seeds because I got the Baker Creek catalog. And I bought some sweet potato slips that you don't know about.
Okay.
Because my sweet potato slips died last year and I wanted a specific variety. So I spent like $16 on those. So $60. And the good news about that, guys, is that was $60 on seeds plus all the seeds that are collected here. So that's not bad. Because my seedling game has been going well this year, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that isn't going well is dill.
We'll see what happens with dill because there was a lot of seed scattered about.
Oh, yeah. But do you know what I got? Did you see what I have? Where is it? Hold on. I have all these seeds on the counter right now. Talk to them for a second.
I have no idea what she's carrying on about.
This is all dill seed from 2024. These are seeds I got from Don Gorham's dill that took over a whole hillside. So I literally can just
I think I've got more of that somewhere.
So my thought is, because I've already got some of this scattered around, is I scatter some more around, maybe up on hillside after I do one more round up there of cleanup of the roses and see what comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already scattered a bunch of that.
Yeah, but look at it. Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
It smells so good. Yeah. Yeah. This is Pack Rat says this is some of Don Gorham's giant dill. This is absolutely Don Gorham. So my friend Jen brought me a bunch. She's like, is this enough? And I'm like, as much as you get. She had like the whole car full. I had so much dill this year. It's awesome. I'm very happy. I have enough dried dill to do all my pickling for the year. So that's happy. Okay, let's talk about the Holler Neighbor dinner. We got a Holler Neighbor dinner Sunday. Eversoles are coming back Sunday for a dinner. So it'll be like all the Holler neighbors but Jenny and Nancy.
Yeah.
And Nancy can come if she wants. We were going to have dinner at 3, but now we're having it at 4. And I'm making meatloaf because I did all the slicing of the bacon for the spring workshop, the homemade bacon. And what I always end up with is bacon ends that just won't quite slice. You could slice them with your knife, but usually they're the fattier parts anyway. So those I put through the grinder, and then I use that in combination with beef in my meatloaf, and everybody really likes the smoky bacon taste of the meatloaf.
Yeah.
So that's the meatloaf we're having this weekend for Holler Neighbor dinner. Are you stoked about that?
I haven't had meatloaf in a while.
I know. I've been doing not meatloaf because I felt like every other week I was making meatloaf for a while there.
I don't mind that.
No?
No.
Is meatloaf your favorite?
It's not necessarily my favorite, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah. So we're having meatloaf on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to catching up with the Holler neighbors. And then in 2 weeks, we're having a GSD weekend, which is Get Shit Done, here in preparation for the spring workshop. So so what that means, and I'll put a blog post out about this. Anybody can show up. I'll have a food plan for the weekend, and we'll be building a new deck walkway for one of the outhouses and making sure it's leveled. And then we're going to make sure all the other outhouses are all set up for the spring workshop. There will be trips to the dump there will be trips to the dump.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what else we're doing for setup, but we need to get the outdoor kitchen set up. So just about getting everything ready for the spring workshop. If it doesn't look like it's going to freeze, we'll get the outdoor shower set up. And then I plan to add a second outdoor shower this year with a pop-up tent shower surround.
Okay.
Somebody had one for me to use.
No clue.
Yeah. Oh, mailman's here. Anyway, did you have anything coming in the mail?
No.
Okay. So yeah, that's the plan. And I don't know. GSD weekend, if you want to come to the holler, we'll put your butt to work. Then we'll have a campfire at night. Beer will be drunk. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And I know a few people are coming. Anything else about the homestead? Oh, finance update. Oh no, that was it. Finance update was that I spent $60 on the garden and haven't had to buy any seedlings. The only seedlings I plan to buy this year are that I am going to end up buying some sweet pepper plants at the farmer's market because I did not get my sweet peppers started soon enough. I'm going to start some, but I have a feeling I'm going to be like, and I'll spend $6 on those plants because I do that every year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any questions from our friends, guys. Thanks so much for coming to the Homestead Update. If you like the show and want to support the work that we're doing here, you can support us in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at Holler Roast. 2, consider becoming a member. The next member webinar is about starting small-scale events on your homestead. Find out more about that at livingfreeintennessee.com. Make it a great weekend. Woohoo!